Okay, so hi. I'm going to do a little blog about something that is very embarrassing for most girls and kind of scary. And it's about your first pap smear. Yep, I said it. Your first pap smear. Now, you're supposed to get one either like 6 or something months after you start having sex, or if you haven't had sex or anything, they recommend you start getting them after you turn 21. So I'm 22, and my doctor's like, well, we gotta get one, which I had plans with my other doctor. Long story short, doctor skips town, can't get one. I had 2 doctors skip town on me, actually. So this new doctor was like, well, we'll get it done and we'll get it over with. Okay, so I'm like, oh, great, I just met you. Met him once before I actually got my pap smear done. Once, and, okay, he met my whole family, and just a little story of how awkward it was. The first person he meets in my family is my dad. The second person is me. So he comes in the room after meeting my dad and says to me, I just met your husband. Your husband? I'm like, that was my dad. Okay. Anyways, that was a little awkward. So, dreading this the whole month, because it was at like the end of the month, the end of last month, and I'm just dreading it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this man thought my dad was my husband, he's going to be all up inside me, it's going to be awkward, it's going to hurt, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So, dreading it. And you know, it wasn't until the actual day of, when I was sitting in the waiting room, that I was like, like freaking out. So I'm sitting in the waiting room, and like, my heart is just pounding, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so awkward. So anyways, I'm waiting there for like half an hour or so, and finally the girl comes out and tells me to go in the room. And of course, I get the room where, okay, there's like the office that you wait in, and then there's like the little doorway into the hallway of all the like appointment rooms, and there's one room where you can see in the door when they open it, and I get that room. So she brings me into that room, and she's like, she's opening the door, and there's a gown on the bed and a sheet, a white sheet, and they have like the plastic or like paper or whatever over the thing. And so she says, okay, so just undress your bottoms and put the gown on with like the opening at the back, and we'll give you a few minutes. So I do that. Number one, wear pants that are easy to take off. You can keep your socks on too. That's another thing. You don't have to take your socks off. I didn't. It was kind of cold. Oh, I just got a text message. Let me close that. And so, anyways, so you get in there. You got the gown on, and you're naked from the bottom down. And if you're tiny like me, this thing covers you mostly. Like, so I'm sitting on the little table or whatever, and I'm waiting for him to come in. And so he comes in. He asked me like when my last period was, if I ever had a pap smear, and if I know what they do when they do one. Now, I do know what they do, because obviously I was looking their shit up, and I was like, oh my god, they're going to be shoving this big metal thing into my vagina and just creeping me out, and they're going to be swabbing me up. So I'm like, no, I'm like, well, I know, but like I don't really know. So he shows me like the things that you put your feet in, and then like he pulls out this little. Now, on the internet, all I saw were, like, little plastic. They look like a little gun, like, that they shove inside you. And so, but he had a plastic one. And he's like, this is the smallest one. And, like, pretend this is, like, the thing that, like, opens you up. It looks like a gun, I guess. They only put it in, like, he said, like, about that much. So, like, if it was my middle finger, they put it in about that much. So, it's not too much. But anyways, so he's like, I'll go get the girl, because they have a girl come in with you. Or one of the assistants, like, whatever. So she comes in too. And so he's like, okay, so just slide on down and put your legs up. And so I'm sliding down, prop my legs up, and he wants you to, like, open them, like, wide. Like, my feet are, like, slipping off of the thing, because, like, I can't, like, my feet are, like, sideways, because they're so wide open. And he's, like, down there. And so you have your gown on, and you have the sheet over you. So I couldn't see my doctor's face. Like, I couldn't see anything he was doing. I could see the girl. She was just handing him things. She wasn't looking down there or anything. But I could see her. And, so it's kind of awkward. Like, first he's like, okay, first, like, they lube up his hand. And he's like, first thing you're going to feel is my hand. And I'm just like, oh my God. You don't really feel it. And then he, like, lubes up the thing and plops it in. You can kind of feel it. I don't know if you're a virgin or really tiny down there, if that's going to be painful for you, but the only tip I can give to you is just, like, relax. Like, train to relax your muscles down there or something, because if you are, like, and, like, squeezing down there, it's going to be, like, 1,000 times worse, I can guarantee. So, it's down there. Now, first of all, they swab you up with this, like, cotton swab thing or whatever, and I don't think he knew exactly what he was doing or something, because he swabs it up, and then he breaks off the tip into this little jar, and he's like, oh, I think we needed to do the other tip. And so he's like, oh, sorry. And he has to do it again. And so I'm like, okay. Now, probably the worst part of all of this is when they brush your cervix. Okay? That feels really weird. You're kind of like, ugh. Because it's like this tiny little brush. It looks like this tiny, like it's on this blue stick, and it looks like this tiny flipping, like, toilet brush. And so they swab up your cervix, and you can feel it, like, scratching, and you're just like, ugh, ugh. Like, feels kind of weird. And then that's the end of it. And because they, like, open the gun thing, I forgot to mention, they, like, had to open it a little bit so they can get in there. But then another thing that feels weird is when he cranked it down and pulled it out. I don't know why that felt so weird. Maybe, like, the edges, like, kind of scraped against me. I'm not sure. But then you get to make eye contact with him while he's up diddling you. So he, like, stands up, and he's like, I'm just going to check your ovaries. So he puts his, like, fingers inside of you, and he's, like, pushing on your stomach, and he's like, oh, does that hurt and stuff? And I'm just like, nope, feels fine. No pain, like, trying not to look into the eyes. And then they're like, okay, well, we'll give you a couple minutes to redress, and we'll be back in, and you're done. Like, that's it. So, you're all lubed up down there. It's kind of gross. But, put your pants back on, and he comes back in, and you're kind of just like, okay, can I go now? Like, awkward. And they'll call you back within a couple weeks or so if anything is abnormal, or if the test went wrong, or something like that. But, that's basically your first pap smear. Also, when I was in there, I got, like, really hot, and I must have been, like, beet red, because I was like, oh my God, oh my God. But, that's my first pap smear experience. Pap smear experience. And, you know, not the most fun thing that any girl goes through, but it's definitely something that you have to do to protect yourself against cervical cancer or STDs or just anything that might be wrong down there. And, you know, hopefully you can be one of those people who only has to get one, like, once a year. And once you've had your first, I mean, you go in there knowing what to expect. It's not so bad. But the first one is very scary, and I know a lot of girls avoid it. I know I was one of them, avoiding it constantly because I dreaded it. But it's really not that bad. And hopefully this video helped out some girls for a real-life experience on their first pap smear. Hopefully you won't have anything worse happen to you. Pretty standard procedure. I don't know if you're going to end up going to a gynecologist for it, but my home doctor did it, so pretty awkward, but you get through it. So hopefully that could help some people out. And see ya!